Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the shir this evening, which is the Kabblah of splitting seas and rivers. The Torah tells us that when Moshe Rabbeinu was by the burning bush, Hashem told him, "B'hoitziacha es ha'am mimitzrayim, tavdun es ha'elokim al ha'har hazeh." When you take the Jewish people out of Mitzrayim, you will serve God on this mountain. And so we know that the roadmap was there. When Moshe would take the Jewish people out of Mitzrayim, they would eventually end up at Mount Sinai. And after the Exodus, 7 days afterwards, they encountered the sea. And we know the story. We're going to read the Shira this coming Shabbos in Shul, that what happens, the Jewish people arrive by the shores of the Red Sea, and they have the Egyptians behind them, the sea in front of them, they're sandwiched in from all sides, and Moshe Rabbeinu tells them, Daber el b'nei Yisrael v'yiso, Nachshon ben Aminadab jumps into the sea, and the sea splits into 12, the Jewish people pass through, and the Egyptians come after them, the sea cascades down on them. Moshe leads the Jewish people in a great shira, in a great song, and thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that is the destination. We know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had told Moshe that he's eventually going to take the people on this route to Sinai. So Kriyas Yamsuf was a hakdama, was a preparation to Matan Torah. And what we're going to learn today is a parallel story in Yeshaya, which tells us of Ki meitzescha me'eretz Mitzrayim arenu niflois. As in the days of going out of Mitzrayim, I will show you wonders. Let me read to you a passage from the book of Yeshaya, chapter 11. This is a beautiful passage all about the coming of Mashiach. And it says the following: a staff will emerge from the stump of Yishai, v'yotza choyte migezer Yishai. The spirit of Hashem will rest upon him, a spirit of wisdom and understanding, a spirit of counsel and strength, a spirit of knowledge and fear of Hashem. He will be imbued with a spirit for Hashem and will not need to judge by what his eyes see nor decide by what his ears hear. He will judge the destitute with righteousness and decide with fairness for the humble of the earth. He will strike the wicked of the world with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he will slay the wicked. Righteousness will be the girdle around his loins, and faith will be the girdle around his waist. The wolf will live with the sheep, and the leopard will lie down with the kid. And a calf, a lion whelp, and a fatling will walk together, and a young child will lead them. A cow and bear will graze, and their young will lie down together, and a lion, like cattle, will eat hay. A suckling will play by a viper's hole, and a newly weaned child will stretch his hand toward an adder's lair. They will neither injure nor destroy in all of my sacred mountain, for the earth will be filled with knowledge of Hashem as water covering the seabed. It shall be on that day that the descendant of Yishai, who stands as a banner for all peoples, nations will seek him, and his resting place will be glorious. Now, it's this particular next passage that you have to tune in on. It shall be on that day that the Lord will once again show his hand to acquire the remnant of his people who will have remained from Assyria and from Egypt, and from Pathros, and from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamas, and from the islands of the sea. He will raise a banner for the nations and assemble the castaways of Israel, and he will gather in the dispersed ones of Yehudah from the four corners of the earth. That's a description of kibbutz galuyos, of the ingathering of the exiles. The jealousy of Ephraim shall stop, and the oppressors of Yehudah shall be cut off. Ephraim will not be jealous of Yehuda, and Yehuda will not harass Ephraim. They will fly in unison against the Philistines to the west, and together they will plunder the people of the east. Their hand will extend over Edom and Moab, and their discipline over the children of Ammon. And now listen very carefully. Hashem will dry up the gulf of the sea of Egypt. The Hecherim Hashem, Eis Lashon Yam Mitzrayim, and he will wave his hand over the Euphrates River with the power of his breath. Vehenif Yodai al Hanor Bayom Ruchoi. Vehikahu L'Shivin Acholim, and he will break it into 7 streams. Vehidrich bin Olim, and the people will cross in dry shoes. V'hoisa mesila lish'ar amoy, there will be a road for the remnant of his people, asher yishar me Ashur, that will remain from Assyria, kasha hoisa li Yisrael b'yoim aloise mi'eretz Mitzrayim, as there was for Israel on the day it went up from the land of Egypt. How fascinating. Yeshaya, the prophet Isaiah, tells us that in time to come, at the time of kibbutz galuyos, at the time of the ingathering of the exiles, what will happen is, just like there was the crossing of the sea, the Reed Sea, where the sea split and there was the Kriyas Yamsuf, the splitting of the sea and there was the Shira, so too there will be an event, Le'osid Lobai, in time to come. The difference is that then Hashem will wave his hand over the Euphrates River with the power of his breath, Bayom Ruchai. He'll break it into 7 streams and lead the people across in dry shoes. So it'll be dry as it was in the time of Yamsuf, but it's only 7 streams. So what is fascinating is to contrast what happened then and what will happen in the future. What happened then by the Exodus of Egypt was this splitting of the sea and the Jewish people going through in 12 channels. And La'asid Lava, in time to come, there'll be the splitting of a river and into 7 streams. And in both occasions, the water turned into dry land, and they went through, in the first case, B'soich hayam bayabasha, in the midst of the sea on the dry land, and in the case La'asid Lavai, V'hidrich bin Olim, the people will cross in dry shoes. What is the difference between the splitting of the sea and the splitting of the river? And why was there a splitting of the sea going out of Mitzrayim, and there'll also be a splitting of the river, Le'osid Lavi, in time to come? That's going to be the subject of our class this evening. And what I'm going to give over is based on 2 Ma'amorim of the Alter Rebbe. One Ma'amor is in Torah Oyer Parshas B'Shalach, and it's entitled Vayar Yisrael. And the second is in Likutei Torah in Parshas Tzav, and it's entitled Vehenif Yodai. Let's start off with the pasuk Bereshis bara Elokim eis hashamayim ve'eis haaretz. In the beginning, Hashem created the heaven and earth. The Ramban says that whenever we employ the term bara, it means beria yesh me'ayin, creation, something from nothing. It's a fascinating term, beria yesh me'ayin, something from nothing. What do we mean from nothing? After all, ki mimacha hakoil, everything comes from Hashem. So why don't we use the term something from Hashem? Hashem created. Why do we use a descriptive term, ayin, nothing, to describe Hashem? Well, one explanation is that perhaps nothing is the best way to describe Hashem, because it's nothing that we can describe. We can't give any positive description to Hashem. We can't give him any parameters or physical or corporeal dimensions or terms. We can say what he isn't. We can't exactly say what he is. And therefore, we term him ayin, as just like nothing is the absence of something, so to ayin is the best way of describing Hashem, that he's the absence of anything that we can describe him with. We can just call him the creator. However, there is another reason why we call him ayin, because ayin means something that we can't grasp. It is not something that we can perceive. Yesh, something which has definition, something which has parameters, borders, limitations, something which has a certain framework within which we can define it, we can call something yesh. However, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's not something which we can perceive. It's beyond our ken. And in fact, the whole of creation, the whole perception of Hashem only comes when he is mitzamtzem, when he contracts himself in the form of a name. And this is what we call the Shem Havaya. Yud Kei Vav Kei, the Tetragrammaton. Yud is the contraction in the form of a nukuda, a dot, a point. Hey is the expansion of that point in breadth and length. Vav is a further extension, and Hey is a further expansion. Those are the four stages of conception. When we conceive of an idea, first of all, we have the seminal flash, the dot, the point of conception. That is called chokhmah, koyach ma, the potential for something, the idea that falls into the head. Then there comes bina, the idea of fleshing out the point, expanding it, developing it, analyzing it, giving it breadth and length. That's the hay. At that point, it remains cerebral. We could delete it. However, in order to draw it down and become emotionally excited about it, hooked on it, that's the vav. Those are the emotions. So yud is chachma, hey is bina, vav are the emotions, what we collectively call zot, ze'er anpin, the midos of chesed, gevura, tiferes, netzach, and yesod. And finally, we have action, we have hey, we have the development into something new, creation, which comes from the mouth, the articulation of the sephira of Malchus, which is the 10th sephira. And hence, all the 10 spheres are encapsulated in those 4 letters, and those 4 letters also represent the 4 worlds of Atzilus, Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. One sephira being dominant in each one of the worlds. So the sephira of Chachma is dominant in the world of Atzilus, and that's why Atzilus is Bitul, because the letter Yud is a dot, and it represents Chachma, which is the koyach of ma. Ma is bitul, as Moshe Rabbeinu says, va'anachnu ma, what are we? And the bitul resonates right throughout the world of Atzilus, which is called kulei elokus, it's all godliness. There it says, ihu v'chayohi chad, ihu v'garmoyi chad, there he and his lights are one, he and his kalim are one, everything is one in the world of Atzilus, everything is nullified before Hashem. And then as we transform down into the lower worlds, going out of the mouth, if you want, of Malchus, of Atzilus, down into the worlds of Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya, so then the world of Bria is the letter Hey, the world of Yetzira is the letter Vav, and the world of Asiya is the final letter Hey. And in the world of Bria, the dominant sphere is Bina. In the world of Yetzira, the dominant set of spheres are Ze'er Anpin, the spheres of Chesed through Yesod. And in the world of Asiya, the dominant sphere is Malchus. If we wanted to put it slightly differently, we could say the following. There is a hidden world and there is a concealed world. In Aramaic, the hidden world is called Alma de Iskasia, the hidden world. And the revealed world is called the Alma de Iskalia. If we wanted to give them terrestrial, if we wanted to give them terrestrial terms, we would call the Alma de Iskasia, the hidden world, Yam, sea, because everything is covered, whereas on Yabasha, on dry land, everything is revealed. In fact, the Chazal say, Kol masha yesh v'yabasha yesh v'yam. Everything that there is in the dry land, there is also in the sea. So you just like you have horses on the land, you also have horses in the sea. Everything that you have in dry land, you have in the sea. You have mountains in the sea. You have valleys in the sea. Everything that you see on land, you also have in the sea. The difference is, it's mechusa, it's covered. It's an alma de iskasia, it's a hidden world. In fact, Chazal say that the human being is the same. The human being is a microcosm of the macrocosm world. And just like in the world you have 2/3 water and 1/3 dry land, so too in the human being you have 1/3 which is revealed, which is the revealed consciousness, and you have 2/3 which is concealed, which is the concealed world, the concealed consciousness. Kriyas Yamsuf was a change that the Yam turned into Yabosha, that the sea turned into dry land. We'll get to that in a minute. In Yam, in the sea, all the creations of the sea live in the sea, and their life comes from the sea. And if they are taken out of the sea, they die. On land, they can live even if they're separated from the land. They're not intrinsically connected to the land. Take a fish out of water, it will die. Lift a horse above dry land, it will live. So there's a difference between Yam and Yabasha. Let's use another parable to describe the idea of Bria, creation. Creation was made with utterances. Ba'asara mamoris nibra ha'olam. Now we know that God doesn't have a mouth and he doesn't physically have any form. However, there is the concept of speech and God speaking. The 10 utterances. Vayomer Elokim yehi or. Hashem said, "Let there be light." What does that mean? Dibur ha'elyon, supernal speech, is the contraction of infinite light into finite creative packages. And as we know, the 22 letters of the Aleph base, each letter is a certain configuration of energy, and through the combination of letters, creation comes to be, as it says in Sefer Yetzirah, that one brick builds one house, 2 bricks build 2 houses, 3 bricks build 6 houses, 4 bricks 24. There's a progression of multiplication, 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, and if you have 22 letters, it's a huge number of things to create, and everything is created by Hashem combining letters together, as is explained in Sefer Yetzirah. Where do the letters emanate from? They emanate from God's mouth, speech, in the sense that these letters of creation come out, if you want, to create something which is independent. They actually create a yesh. They create something which feels independent. Unlike it is in the sea, where every creation of the sea feels its source as being the sea, the creations of the dry land feel independent. And so consequently, when we go over from Atzilus into Bria, there's a qualitative change that takes place. What's happening is that something is going from the state of the ayin to the state of the yesh, and that can be called dibur, speech between Atzilus and Bria, from Malchus, the Atzilus, as it comes down into the world of Bria, there is what we call a parsa, a curtain, a forehang, a divide. And that divide is the speech that covers the pristine intellect. Even if you convey an idea in words, the essence of the intellect remains in the mind. It comes out and is articulated in certain words, but the words themselves, although they convey light, they also hide light. And this is what happens in the parsa, in the divide between Atzilus and Bria. That's, by the way, mirrored in the Beis Hamikdash and in the Mishkan. The Kodesh HaKadosh was representative of the world of Atzilus, which is why there you had the Mokem Ha'orin She'enim Min Amida, the place of the ark, which didn't take any physical space up, which is a physical impossibility and can only be achieved by the Nimna HaNimnois, by the ability of God to fuse opposites. And then there was a curtain, and then we went into the world of the Kodesh. So that's the curtain that divides between Atzilus and the world of Bria. Now, that curtain allows the emergence of a new and independent entity. What happened at Sinai? At Sinai, the Midrash tells us a fascinating thing happened. There was a gezerah, says the Midrash, that the people of Rome couldn't go down to Syria, and the people of Syria could not go up to Rome. The king abolished the decree, and the people of Rome could go down to Syria, and the people of Syria could go up to Rome. Says the Midrash, before Sinai, El Yoinim lo yerdu lamata, there was a decree that the upper worlds could not descend to the lower worlds, and the lower worlds could not ascend to the upper worlds. Hashem abolished that decree, and Tachtonim alu lamayla, the lower worlds ascended upwards, and the upper worlds descended downwards. Va'ani hamaschal, and Hashem said, and I started, as it says, Vayered Hashem al Har Sinai, that Hashem came down on Mount Sinai. So stated somewhat differently, what happened at Sinai was the fusion of the upper and the lower. Or to put it in the lexicon of Chassidus, there was a gilui, a revelation of Atzilus in Biyah, a revelation of the world of Atzilus down here in the worlds of Biyah. However, that took place for a certain moment at Sinai, thereafter to be accomplished by Torah and mitzvahs. Because mitzvahs, what are mitzvahs? Mitzvahs are, as it says in Tikkunei Zohar, a varim de malka. A varim de malka means they are limbs of the divine. And these limbs of the divine draw down energy from above, just like a limb draws down life from the soul, so too do these limbs draw down elokus, godliness, down into the world. This is what took place at Sinai. And as a preparation to Sinai, as a preparation to that, there was a bekia. A bekia means that there was a divide. There was a split. There was a split at Yamsuf in the world of Atzilus being able to go down into the worlds of Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. And in order, that all took place, Yamsuf took place in order that later, once there'd been, if you want to split, and it was possible for Atzilus to go down into Biyah, in order for Matan Torah to happen, that, if you want, that path had to be opened up. And that's the reason why there was the opening up of the Yamsuf as a preparation for Matan Torah, for the giving of the Torah. So if we wanted to say the Kriyas Yam Suf in these terms, we would say, Hafach Yom Leyabosha. Sea was transformed into dry land. The sea, the world of Atzilus, and Yabosha, the dry land of the worlds of Bria, Yetzir, and Asiya, those worlds, the sea opened up, and what was felt on the dry land was the Gilui, or the revelation, as it is in the world of Atzilus. That took place at the Kriyas Yam Suf. And that's what it says, that even a shifcha, even a maidservant, saw at the splitting of the sea what the greatest prophets could see. Now, we'll now understand that that's why the sea split into 12 paths. We're told that it split into 12 paths corresponding to each one of the 12 tribes. The 12 tribes spiritually are rooted in the world of Bria. In fact, the Avos, the patriarchs, correspond to the spheres of Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes of Atzilus. They are called Merkavta Ilah, the upper chariot, and the 12 tribes are positioned in the world of Beria, and they are called Merkavta Tata, the lower chariot. It's interesting, although in the world of Beria, we talk of the 4 machanois, the 4 campments of angels of Michael, Gavriel, Raphael, and Uriel. Yet at the same time, each one of these 4 is split into 3, rather like the encampments in the desert, of where you had 4 separate encampments around the Mishkan, each of which having 3 tribes in them. And the 12 tribes, therefore, of Israel are positioned in the world of Beria. Their root and source is in the 12 sides of the triangle in the spheres of Zah of Atzilus. If you take the 6 spheres of Chesed through to Yesod and you draw them in a triangle, you'll see there are 12 sides to the triangle. These are called the Yud Beis Gevulei Alachsoin, the 12 sides of the diagonals, and that's the root of the 12 tribes in the world of Atzilus. However, as they manifest in the world of Beria, that's where the Shvatim, the Yud Beis Shvatim are. And that's why the Kriyas Yam Suf, the splitting of the sea, was in 12 parts, because each had a revelation of Atzilus, but within their particular pathway. Or to say it somewhat different, they were elevated up into Atzilus. And that was all a preparation for Matan Torah, where in Matan Torah, through mitzvahs, which are the limbs of the king, the bittul of Atzilus, the feeling of the world of Atzilus, which is completely alakos, can be drawn down here into this world, creating a dira lo yizbarach b'tachtonim, a dwelling place for Hashem down here in this world. Now, we say of this period in which we're in at the moment, Hayoim la'asaysam, today is the time that we need to do mitzvahs, ulamachar lekabel scharim. However, in time to come, we will get the reward for them. What does that mean? When we will get that reward? It says, le'osid lavoi, in time to come, Mashiach will come, there will be the resurrection of the dead. And then, as it says in Shir Hashirim, Yishakeni min neshikos pihu, Hashem will kiss me with the kiss of his mouth. And it's explained that means there will then be a gilui, a revelation of Pnimius HaTorah, of the inner dimension of the Torah. And that will be taught by Mashiach. In other words, even though there will be the resurrection of Moshe Rabbeinu and the Avos and the Amos, and everybody will get up, nevertheless, Moshe Rabbeinu will teach them all Pnimius HaTorah, the inner dimension of the Torah. And the way in which he will teach him will be in a way of re'iyah, of seeing things. The Alter Rebbe brings a story to exemplify that. He says once the Arizal went to sleep on Shabbos, and he later related when he awoke that this was a short while that he slept for, but in that short while he heard in the Heavenly Academy an explanation on the matter of Balak. He heard an unbelievable explanation there that would take 80 years to be able to expound. Now that's very difficult to understand, because usually if a person hears something or sees something, if you hear it in terms of thoughts and you want to speak it out, you can think about something, but it will take you, could be 4 days, 5 days to be able to speak it out, or a few hours, but not 80 years. How is it possible that in such a short time, in a shluf on Shabbos afternoon, he was able to see things which would take 80 years to explain? And the answer is that he wasn't hearing things, he was seeing things. This is called in Chassidus Re'iyah de Chachma, the seeing of Chachma. And that is exactly the way of how Mashiach will be able to teach Torah la'asid lavai. He will teach in a way of Re'iyah de Chachma. Now, when we talk about Yamsuf, we've explained that Yam is the Sphira of Malchus of Atzilus. And we've said that Dibur, speech, comes out from Malchus Peh. However, when we're talking about Machshava, thought is very different than speech. Thought, Machshava, runs constantly. It's like a river. And it's rooted in the Sphira of Bina. Now the Torah says, V'nahar yotzei me Eden, that the river came out from Eden, which means that Eden is separate than the Gan. There's Gan Eden and there's Eden itself. V'nahar yotzei me Eden, a river goes out of Eden, lahashkois es hagon, in order to water the garden. And the Gemara says about Eden itself, ayin lo rasa elokim zolasecha, that nobody has seen Eden. However, le'asid lavai, in time to come, there will be a revelation of Eden itself. What is this Eden? And where is this Nahar river coming out of? So it says that the river is a reference to the Sephira of Bina of Atzilus. Bina is analysis. It forms Machshava, which is constantly flowing like a river. But it's rooted in higher than Atzilus. It's rooted in a level called Atik. In fact, in Atik itself, there are 2 levels. Well, it's called Keser. In Keser itself, there are 2 levels. Chitzonius HaKeser, the outer level of Keser, is called Arich, and Pnimius HaKeser is called Atik. The level of Chachma in Arich is called Moichin Stima, the hidden Chachma, and the pleasure and the delight of the inner level of Atik is called Eden. So now we understand when it says V'nahar yotzei me Eden, that in fact this river of Bina is flowing out of the most deepest and highest place, which even is higher than the world, of Atzilus itself. This is the river. It will be split into 7. Why 7 and not 12? Because this refers to the 3 Avos, fathers, and the 4 Imohos, mothers. 4 and 3 and 7. It will be split into 7 because even the Avos and the Imohos, on their level, which they are the spheres of Chachma, Bina, and Das, of Chesed, Gvura, and Tiferes of Atzilus, even they will look much higher and appreciate much greater when Mashiach will come, because even they will be taught by Mashiach, who will reveal the level of Pnimius Atik, the level of Eden itself. And consequently, even by then, there will have to be a Bikia, a splitting of the river, in order that they should appreciate Eden itself, which is the teaching of Mashiach. And this is what it written by Yom Ruchai, that he'll split the river by Yom Ruchai. The Alter Rebbe explains that by Yom Ruchai is a reference to the Ruchai Shel Melech HaMashiach, as it says, "V'ruach Elokim merachefes al pnei hamoyim," that the Spirit of Hashem hovered over the waters. Moshe Rabbeinu, it says, "Min hamayim mishisihu." Moshe Rabbeinu himself, he was taken from the level of water. Mashiach, however, is going to be merachefes al hamoyim. He'll be higher than Moshe Rabbeinu. Although it says about Nevuah, Moshe is the greatest Navi, however, in terms of revelation, Mashiach will teach even Moshe Rabbeinu. And this is what it says, Umala ha'oretz, deya es Hashem kamayim le'yom chasim. As Yeshaya says, that in this time, in the time of Mashiach, when the river will be split into 7, the world will be full of knowledge of Hashem like the water covers the seabed, meaning that then down here in this world, we will have that revelation of Atzilus, in a sense that we will all feel completely our source, but we'll feel it down here in this world because of the teaching of Mashiach, which will be in a way of Re'iyah, in seeing things, and we'll see literally with our physical eye, we'll be able to see godliness. Now, that is just like then, when we went out of Egypt, there was the splitting of the sea as a prelude to the giving of the Torah, because Torah is the ability to bring down Atzilus down into this world through mitzvahs, and therefore the path had to be opened up through the splitting of the sea. So just like it was in the revelation of the Nigla, the revealed parts of the Torah, so too le'asid lava in time to come. In order for there to be a revelation of Pnimius HaTorah, of the inner level of the Torah, there also has to be a splitting. But it won't be a splitting of the sea, which is the level of Malchus. It will be a splitting of the river, which is the level of Bina, as it's rooted in Atik, in Eden. And Mashiach will reveal the highest level, but he will reveal it down here in this world. In the lexicon of Chassidus, there will be a Gilui Ha'atzmus, there will be a Hamshacha, a drawing down and a revelation of the very essence down here in this world to complete the dwelling in this world. Now, all of this is, of course, is achieved through the Avodah of Teshuvah, because it says, V'haruach toshav v'elo Elokim asher nasana, that the spirit will return to God who gave it. And the Rambam says that Hivticha Torah, the Torah promises that Jews, b'soif Golusan, at the end of their Golus, they will do Teshuvah, meaning they'll return to their spiritual essence. Who achieves this? By the Yamsuf it says, Vayaminu v'Hashem u'v'Moshe Avdel. The Yidden believed in Hashem and in Moshe his servant, because it was Moshe, the Raya Mehemna, the faithful shepherd, meaning not only does he shepherd his people like a faithful shepherd, like a shepherd shepherds his sheep, but also he nurtures the people with faith. That is the meaning of Raya Mehemna. He nurtures them and he gives them faith. Meaning, what is faith? Faith is something that transcends intellect. This is what it says, that when Hashem was speaking to Moshe, he says, Hashem, Hashem, Keu Rachum V'Chanun. There's what's called the Havaya de Le'ela and Havaya de Le'Tata. There's Hashem as he comes within creation, and there's Hashem as he transcends creation. And it is Moshe that joins the faith in godliness that transcends creation and brings it within creation. Because Moshe is a Mamutza HaMachaber, Moshe is an intermediary that fuses above and below. And so too is it with Ispashtusa de Moshe b'chol dara v'dara, with the extension of Moshe in every single generation. And ultimately it will be the greatest by Mashiach. Because as we said, Mashiach will not only split the divide between Atzilus and Biyah, Bria, Yitzir, and Asiyah, Mashiach will achieve the splitting of the river, revealing the level of Eden itself, the highest of levels, Pnimis Atik, teaching Torah even to Moshe Rabbeinu and all the patriarchs and the matriarchs and all those who were resurrected. Moshe will reveal to them the Eden, the greatest and most deepest and most quintessential levels in a way of seeing. And all this is precipitated by a taste, a Vorspeise of that in the teachings of Chassidus by the Rabbeim. The teachings of Chassidus of the Rabbeim are from those fountains of their most deepest teachings of the Torah, from the Even Shebekeser HaMelech, the stone in the crown jewel, which has been taken and delivered to us in this generation, given to us, in order that we can be meifitz the Mayonos Chutzah, we can disseminate those teachings which reveal the oneness in the world, which reveal the essence of the Jew, and which reveal the inner depth of the Torah. Because ultimately, Yisrael, Oiraisa v'Kutshabrichu Kulachad, the essence of the Jew, the essence of the Torah, and the essence of Hashem are one. And consequently, this is why the Rambam begins his work. By the way, the Rambam is hinted to in Yetzias Mitzrayim, as it says, Revois Moivsai B'Yeretz Mitzrayim, multiplying my wonders in the land of Mitzrayim, which is Rosh Hashanah's Rambam. The Rambam, V'nei Yisrael Yotzim B'Yad Rama, the Yidden will go out by the hand of Rabbeinu Moshe HaSfardi. And by the way, the Targum says over there, Bereish Galei, Beis Reish Yud Shin, when Bereish Galei will be revealed. Beis Reish Yud Shin can stand for Reb Shlomo ben Yitzchak, Reb Yitzchak ben Shlomo, who was the Arizal, and it can also stand for Reb Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, and it could also stand for Rabbeinu Yosef Yitzchak ben Reb Shalom ben, means the Frierdiker Rebbe, Unser Rebbe, Bereish Galei, when their teachings will be revealed. And when these teachings, which are teachings from that crown jewel, will be revealed in this world, this is bringing out, this is causing, this movement now will actually lead to the splitting of that river, Le'asid Lavi, in time to come, because everything that will happen then is because of Ma'asenu va'avedosenu, because of our deeds now in Galus. And especially now, after we've experienced 70 years since the leadership of the Rebbe, and we just experienced the beautiful and uplifting and connecting day of Yud Shvat, this is a most appropriate time to strengthen ourselves and to take on new resolutions in Hafosas HaMayonos Chutzah. And as Mashiach said to the Baal Shem Tov, Eimosai ka'osi mar, when will you come? When these teachings will be widely disseminated. May it happen. Takef umiyad mamash.
Thank you, Rabbi Dubov, for such a beautiful hour or 45 minutes. We really do appreciate it. And to everyone who joined in, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed, and please join us on Wednesday night with Rabbi Paltiel in honor of Tu B'Shvat. Have a great evening.